Born and raised in a small village in northern England, Glenys Nellist is the author of multiple award-winning children's books, including the best-selling 'Twas the Evening of Christmas, The Wonder That Is You, and it's been 10 years, I think, this year since her debut book that started it all, Children's Love Letters from God. Now, her latest, Song of the Seasons, is based on Psalm 98 and reveals how every season points to the Creator. So, Glenys, thank you so much for coming back onto the Wednesday Bookmark.
Oh, I'm so happy to be here, Care. Thanks so much for chatting with me.
So such a journey, 10 years now. I mean, you just don't seem to stop. And I have to ask too, like, does it feel ever like, okay, I think I need to settle down. I don't know if or do the ideas keep coming? Like, where are you with that right now?
Well, I describe it as it's like a huge snowball that just keeps rolling, and I'm clinging on for dear life, you know. It's a marvelous blessing, and it's something I never imagined would happen in my life, you know. So as you said, it's 10 years since my first book was published, and I honestly thought, "Da-da, I have arrived," you know. I published a book and that's it, and I just never envisioned that would turn into a series, and that then there would be more books inside me. It's just a marvelous journey, and I'm going to keep hanging on for dear life as long as I can and just keep writing.
I love that. Okay, so Psalm 98 is the one that begins, "Sing to the Lord a new song." So why is this the psalm that you wanted to share with this book through the 4 seasons?
Mm-hmm. Well, as a writer of rhyme, I like to write in rhyme a lot, not exclusively, but I've always loved poetry. And so the Psalms, of course, is the poetry book of the Bible. And I mean, they don't rhyme per se, but there's still, I love the language and the images that the Psalms typically evoke. And so Psalm 98, I can't remember when I first came across it, but it's just always captured my imagination because it begins by the psalmist saying, "Let's sing a brand new song to God." And at first he's referring to God's people, right? Let's the people sing for to thank God for delivering the Israelites. But then later on, it's as if he gets really inspired, and then he has the rivers clapping their hands, you know. So it's like, okay, the rivers can join in, and what about the mountains? The mountains sing for joy, and the oceans roar, you know. And so to me, it's just a beautifully evocative image. What would that look like? What would that sound like if we could hear the mountains and the seas singing in praise to God? Mm-hmm. And so I think that psalm is one that children would have no problem envisioning, you know, because they're so good at wondering and imagining scenarios. And so that's really what captured my imagination.
So I've heard this described as a circle book. How is that? And would you read that for us?
Yes, of course. Well, I had not heard that term before, Care, before I'd visited a school several years ago, and I read another of my books, which begins and ends in the same way. And a little girl said, "That's a circle book." And I'm like, "Oh, is it?" Tell me about a circle book. So a circle book is one that begins and ends in the same way. And so it just has this sort of flow to it that when you reach the end, you're right back where you started. And so I thought that was a good technique to use in this book because the seasons are, you know, cyclical. Absolutely. They have a cycle. They come round and round and they never end. And so this book begins in this way. "The earth sings God a brand new song from grass to mountain peak. And if you pause and close your eyes, you'll hear the seasons speak." Mm-hmm. So it begins in spring, and there's a few pages for each season until we get to winter. And it closes in exactly the same way. Yeah.
So then what do the seasons speak?
Well, to me, they speak God's praises, you know. So, for example, in spring, we've got all the flowers and the buds that are, it's just fun to think about what would it be like if the tulips, as they were popping up, said, you know, "God, you're great. Look how you made us," you know. and there are 10,000 flowers that dance in fields in the summertime. All the creatures in the woods and the trees. And I'm just going to give you a peek at the beautiful tulips. Aren't they just, the color is amazing. But so each different season, I just tried to find a way of how they could be singing praise to God as their creator.
Mm-hmm. Wow. I mean, I can't think of seasons and changing seasons in this way without thinking about the kind of metaphorical seasons in our lives, right? And I think it's a great reminder too that even there's a message there, even there's praises that can be sung there. Was that intentional for you to kind of have this double meaning? Because I feel like I always take it that way when I think of the seasons in the year or throughout the year.
Yeah, that's right. There is definitely a parallel, isn't there, that God is with us in each different season of our life, and I've been through many seasons now of my life. And right now, my husband and I, he's a pastor and he is entering the season of retirement, and so, yes, there's definitely a sense in which not only does the earth have its own seasons, but we as God's people, we have our different seasons. And sometimes we might feel close to God, and sometimes it might be hard to feel God with us. But yet, just as God can be found in each season of the earth, God can be found in each season of our lives, of my life too, and carries us through from one season to another.
Now, I know you're living in Michigan, so you get to experience all the seasons. Do you have a favorite? Which is the one that you feel like God speaks to you the most? Or maybe even just this where you are now, this year, for example?
Yeah. Oh, it's so hard to pick a favorite season, but because I do encounter God in nature, outdoors, I might say fall just because of the beauty of the woods, the colors, the riches, and the way that the trees, even though they're losing their leaves, they're just still beautiful. And I think that's like a metaphor for life too, like for me as I get older and we're heading to retirement, but I can still be of use, and so I'd have to pick fall just because of the colors and the way those leaves fall but are useful again to the earth.
Yeah. And then there's still like that. There is still hope. There is still newness to come. So let's just be in this season. It's okay to like see things die because we know that there's good to come.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. And that thought is reflected in the book, in the page that talks about spring. There's a bear asleep in his den. It's a tiny picture that it's fun for kids to spot. But that page talks about when ice and snow begin to melt and springtime fills the air, a million buds begin to sing and rouse the sleeping bear. And then at the end, we come back to the bear in the cave, and it says, though all the earth's a slumber now, and bear sleeps in his den, God's promise echoes through the fields. Spring will return again. Mm-hmm. So yes, that promise and that hope that there is always new life, even if it's in the next life,
Yeah. Well, there is so much we can learn from the seasons. And there's this thing on your website called the Story Walk. Can you explain briefly what that is, but also more practically, just how can families do their own exploration with this book?
Yeah, of course. I'm so glad that you asked me about that. So the Story Walk, it's an idea I first came across during COVID when, of course, everywhere was shut down, and it was a library that I saw offering a way for families to walk through the pages of a book, and it was outdoors. And so each page of the book was a little station where families would pause, they'd read the book, they might spot things in the pictures, then there'd be a little arrow pointing them to the next stage. And so families would literally walk through this path through and read a book together. So it's got so many benefits, like physical literacy skills, the bonding, being outdoors. So it's a great way to experience to read a book. Mm-hmm. So on the book's website, which is songoftheseasonsbook.com, Paraclete Press are offering, you can get the high resolution images. I mean, anybody could just buy the book and make their own story walk by taking the pages apart. But by far the better way to do it is to download the high resolution images, which you can then enlarge and laminate. Mm-hmm. And what better type of book to have outdoors to walk through than one about the seasons? So songoftheseasonsbook.com, I think how Paraclete Press set it up is that people just buy a 3-book bundle. It's discounted, and that gives you access to all the images of the book. Mm. And so it's great for camps or vacation Bible schools, or for churches to use, offer. Because the beauty of a church offering a story walk is it's community wide. It's not just for your church families, it's for everyone in the community. So I'm really excited about the story walk opportunity.
Yeah. And there's 2 little kids in the story too. So relatable. And I wish we had more time, but I feel like the redhead might be you, Glenys. But but we'll wrap it up here. Just so appreciate chatting with you. It's always a joy. And I just love the books you put out. It brought such a smile to my face when my mother-in-law gifted my son this Christmas with one of your Bible story books about wonder. So that was really special. So again, please check her out. Glenys Nellist, the author of this new one, Song of the Seasons. Glenys, thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Care. It was a joy.